It's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
And good morning to you. Appreciate you being here on Red Eye Radio. Dan Mandis here indeed. The phone number remains the same. 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. Gary and Eric return next week, and we have a lot to talk about. By the way, throw the host a bone if you would, and follow me on all the socials at Dan Mandis Show, particularly if you would follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Again, that is at Dan Mandis Show. We have a lot to talk about tonight. I know that the media would love for you to think that there were so many millions of people across the country taking part in the No Kings protests over the weekend, that would be indicative of a blue wave. Well, not so much. We're going to get into that. We have the president taking a victory lap on him taking care of crime, or at least trying to. We'll talk about that as well. Who is it that the American people are blaming for the shutdown? I would call it the Schumer shutdown. We have that for you as well. J.D. Vance is headed to the Middle East, and we'll talk about that as well. Just a lot to get to here on Red Eye Radio, and your calls always welcome. The phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. So let's start with crime, shall we? You know, Red Eye Radio, and I love this about Red Eye, we are heard in a lot of these major cities across America where there are major problems with crime. You know, cities like, and no offense to, you know, folks in Los Angeles or Washington, D.C. or so forth, but crime is a very big issue. So we're going to talk about this because this is something that President Trump has been, as he should be, hyper-focused on, because this is something that he ran on. The American people wanted the president to tackle crime, and this is something that he has indeed focused on. One of the things that I've noticed about Trump is that he is hyper-focused on the things that he campaigned on. He wants to be a president who did everything he could to fulfill those campaign promises. So let's get right to it. The Democrats, of course, whining, doing their marches and their dances last weekend. Trump has been getting stuff done. That was yesterday's theme. Remember the show yesterday? We were talking about how while all of this insanity, all of this lunacy was taking place across America with these No Kings protests, Trump was just getting her done. So that continued today as the president made a point to let Americans know that law and order is back. This is the headline from the Daily Mail. President Trump boasts a huge FBI victory with 28,000 violent criminals arrested, 5,000 children rescued, as he declares law and order is back. But we've known that. We saw it happen in Washington, D.C. We see what is going to happen and is happening in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I-40 westbound from Nashville to Memphis. You end up in Memphis, and I'm going to tell you that as a 12-year Nashvillian, I have yet to go to Memphis because it makes me really nervous. And I know a lot of people that feel that way. In a post to his Truth Social Monday night, the president announcing that more than 28,000 violent criminals, the president saying a record-breaking number, have been arrested, with more than 6,000 weapons seized. Among those who have been arrested are more than 1,700 child predators and 3,000 human traffickers. I'm going to tell you some numbers regarding Memphis and also play you some audio from people who actually live in Memphis. And just like we saw in Washington, D.C., people are saying, thank the Lord for Donald Trump. The president also claiming in this Truth Social post, 5,000 children rescued, 2,000 criminal enterprises have been disrupted, and 1,900 kilos of fentanyl, which Trump said was enough to kill 125 million people, were seized. I don't know. I'm not going to do the fact check on the fentanyl numbers, but clearly taking care of 1,900 kilos of fentanyl is a great thing. The president saying the FBI under my administration is doing an incredible job. Well, Deputy Director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, was on Fox News talking about all of this earlier today, and he was talking about President Trump's state of mind when he came on the job.
The president early on, with regards to this crush and violent crime, whether it's in San Francisco, Chicago, any other major city, early on, this is kind of the untold story of this op. I get appointed, announced in February, come in March, Cash is there a little bit earlier. President brings us in early, and in essence, this is kind of the behind the scenes, guys. He says to us, you know, listen, I'm a builder. I'm in a lot of these big cities. He has just zero tolerance for violent crime. He just does. He drives around Washington, D.C. on these OTRs, off the record movements. He sees homelessness, crime. He can't stand it. He says, what do we got to do to fix this? And we basically lay out a bunch of things. And his answer is very simple. President's like, go get them, boys. Go get them. That was it. Like, you do what you have to do.
And I love that. I love that the president told the FBI and is telling law enforcement, do what you have to do. And I think part of what Bongino is saying is that after the summer of love, remember all this? After the summer of love, George Floyd, of course, killed, and the Democrats, as usual, way overplayed their hand. But as the summer of love was going on, I think the American people were a little, you know, the term that I sometimes use is beleaguered. We were beleaguered. A lot of us knew what was going on with the soft on crime prosecutors, but many Americans didn't until then. And now the Democrats certainly are known for their George Soros soft on crime prosecutors. Of course, we know that the Trump administration, if you listened last night, you know the Trump administration is trying to connect the dots, follow the money, and see if all of these soft on crime policies, of course, we know that George Soros does donate to those soft on crime prosecutors. But what about the riots? What about all of these protests? Are they actually funded by George Soros? We talked about that last night. But one of the things that we always talk about is how during the summer of love, really for a lot of people, it was an awakening. It was awakening to the fact that the Democrat Party has become the party of pro-violence. And one of the audio bites that I absolutely obsess over was this moment back then during that time when Kamala Harris is on Colbert. Remember this?
They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And they're not, this is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not. And we should not.
So that was Kamala Harris, obviously, and that was during the summer of love. If I remember right, when that interview aired, and again, that is on Stephen Colbert way back when, and he brings up the violence that is going on. Realize the violence that is going on literally at that moment. Buildings are burning. People are being assaulted. People are being murdered. Cop cars up in flames. It goes on and on. And Kamala Harris says that they will not let up and they should not let up. And so for a lot of people, I mean, again, not me, because I watch this stuff, but you know, a lot of Americans were like, what the H? And so I think that's why President Trump, along with Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and so forth, they're doing everything they possibly can to try to make our cities safer. And so we all saw during that summer of love the crime going on without any charges, and certainly not any convictions, or at least minimal. The Democrats out there praising the crime. And people, I think, they were just confused. It's like, I don't understand. We've got all of these buildings that are burning, and people are looting and breaking into stores and they're stealing TVs. And, why exactly? George Floyd, he died. And, okay, that's a story in and of itself. But what does that have to do with all of these people breaking into a Best Buy? Donald Trump wants to put a stop to that. Now, a good part of the American people were trying to figure that out, but I wasn't confused. You weren't confused. You listen to Red Eye. You listen to talk radio. You know exactly what was going on. We had millions of dollars in damage to American cities across the country. And Democrats were out there praising the carnage, praising the burning, and the media was saying, oh, yeah, these are just mostly peaceful.
In a violent crime roundtable of the best crim agents in the country, we figured out a battle plan, how to kind of water balloon. When you squeeze a water balloon, you get a bulge. How do we bulge agents here and then bulge agents there? And we cleaned up at the president's direction, the director and I, with the SACs and the agents in the field, we water ballooned around the country and made, get a load of this, guys. This is going to trip you out. 28,000 violent crime arrests in 2025, and the year's not even over. You say, oh, well, what does that mean? Put it in comparison. Prior 3-4 years, the FBI under prior leadership had averaged about 16,000. We're at 28,000. 28,000. We're not even done with the year. We haven't even hit Thanksgiving or Christmas yet. Shows you when you get a president, an attorney general, a deputy attorney general, and an FBI leadership team that lets the FBI do FBI work instead of getting into other nonsense in the past. Look what happens. Your cities get cleaner.
There you go. And Bongino's right. The Daily Mail points this out in this big article about, basically Donald Trump taking a victory lap. And can I just tell you this? I love the messaging. I love the messaging of the White House, where, and I think I said last night, we get all of these problems across the country, right? When it comes to crime. And we had the No Kings protests, of course, over the weekend. I'm not going to focus on that too much tonight, friends. I think that everyone who listens to talk radio gets it. But one of the things that I did say last night, and I will reiterate tonight, is that as these Democrats are out there playing games, they've got inflatables out there, and they've got furry costumes on. All these old people are doing these really silly dances, and on it goes. Congratulations, folks. We still don't have any kings in America. But the Daily Mail points this out because, Trump is saying, all right, if that's what they want to do, that's fine. This is what we're going to do. The Daily Mail is pointing out these success stories. The Justice Department seized 3 million fentanyl pills back in June. The FBI got a Missouri man on their most wanted list for child sex trafficking. I'll point out, obviously, that closing the border was huge. Trying to get these illegal alien gang members out of our country, also huge. And I can tell you again, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. West of me along I-40 in Memphis, they are seeing great results as the law enforcement surges there in Memphis. I mean, they nabbed a child sex offender, a really bad one. They've nabbed over 850 felons. They've rescued or found 5,000 lost children. Because you remember with the Biden administration, right? You remember this. They allow in all of these kids one way or another, and they lost the kids. They just lost them. And nobody seemed to care with the Biden administration. Nobody seemed to care. So they nabbed the child sex offender, over 850 felons. That includes almost 100 illegal alien criminals. 200 plus illegal guns were taken off the street, and a whole bunch of kids have been recovered as well. The phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. My name is Dan Mandis. I do a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. That does air from 5 to 9 Central, 6 to 10 Eastern Time. You can find out all about that on my socials at Dan Mandis Show or at the station website, 997WTN.com. We'll return next on Red Eye Radio.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller.
Compliance, Safety, Accountability is the FMCSA Safety, Compliance, and Enforcement Program. Its goal is to hold motor carriers and drivers accountable for highway safety. CSA does this by assessing the safety performance of motor carriers and drivers. Motor carriers are assigned a score. The carrier is then grouped with other carriers who have had a similar number of safety events. Carrier scores within the group are then ranked. Low scores are better, so carriers with the highest scores are those that are most likely to be targeted for intervention by the FMCSA. Interventions range in severity and may include warning letters, roadside, off-site, or on-site inspections, civil penalties, or operation out-of-service orders. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Appreciate you being here. The Democrats, they are still in a state of complete and utter confusion. Just really quickly, before we get to the bottom of the hour break, this was on Fox News. Now, coming up, I've got a lot for you tonight, and I appreciate you listening as I fill in for Gary and Eric. This was on Fox News. The question is, who is the leader of the Democrat Party? Who is the future of the Democrat Party? Listen to this.
The Faulkner Focus hit the streets, as we often do, to talk with people and ask them who they believe the leader of the Democrat Party is. Let's watch.
I am a Democrat. Nobody.
Oh, that's a good question.
Ooh, I don't know. That's a hard one.
I'm not too sure.
Oh, man. I don't know.
I don't think they have a leader.
Nope.
I don't think we really have one.
I feel like we don't have enough leading.
They need to find one. You think that the Democrats would have just someone out there who actually could lead them?
Where are the plans? All you ever hear is how bad he is. Talk about how you're going to put food on the table, pay the bills.
See, that's what I said yesterday. I said yesterday, with all of this gnashing of the teeth, with all of these Democrats that are the millions, they say, 7 million, they say, across the country. And that last woman was spot on. All they talk about is how Donald Trump is so bad. And then my question was, okay, well, what is your solution? What is your solution? And nobody's got one. And the question is to, who is the future of the party? I was reading about the No Kings protests over the weekend, and one of the things that was, I guess, a perpetual question was, okay, so what do you think about your own party? And a lot of the people that were there had the same opinions as those people with which you just heard on the Faulkner Focus on Fox. When they said, who is the leader? Is it Gavin Newsom? Apparently not. Is it Tim Walz? Apparently not. Pete Buttigieg or whoever. And apparently nobody has any ideas. So I just want to make sure that we're clear. For the Democrats, they have no leader. They have no solutions to the problems that America, and we do have problems, they have no solutions to the problems that the American people face. And when Donald Trump comes to them with a solution to a very specific problem, which is crime in the streets, they try to block it at every turn. Meantime, our future leader, J.D. Vance, who I like to call 48, he's on his way to Israel. Details straight ahead on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Good morning, good evening, whatever it is to you. Yes, indeed. And for Gary and Eric, follow me on the socials if you would, at Dan Mandis Show. We're finding out more about the ceasefire that, of course, is going on in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas and what happened over the weekend. So if you recall, and we spoke about this in a more general nature last night, but now we find out more about the skirmish that happened between Israel and Hamas. Now, number one, I think we can all agree, can't we all agree, that this ceasefire is fragile, which everyone says that it is, and it is. But the ceasefire is fragile not because of Israel, but because of Hamas. But just like President Trump, where if you hit him, he's going to hit you 10 times harder in Israel and in the Middle East, we now know more of what happened that caused the, skirmish between Hamas and Israel over the weekend, where the ceasefire temporarily was off. So apparently, Hamas decided in their infinite wisdom to attack a couple of soldiers. They were killed when Hamas operatives opened fire with an RPG. And so Benjamin Netanyahu responded, and he responded in a big way. They say that for the last couple of days, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the military had dropped almost, listen to this, 169 tons of bombs in Gaza over the weekend. So 2 people were killed, 2 Israeli soldiers were killed, and so Netanyahu dropped 169 tons of bombs in Gaza over the weekend. And by the way, I don't care. If this is what Benjamin Netanyahu needs to do to try to encourage Hamas to keep the peace, then that's what he needs to do. And he's absolutely right. I want you to listen to this quote. He says, "One of our hands holds a weapon. The other hand is stretched out for peace," he told the parliament in Israel. He says, "You make peace with the strong, not the weak. Today, Israel is stronger than ever before." So that is Benjamin Netanyahu. So now they say the skies over Gaza are quiet. And that's obviously a good thing. This is something that obviously is going to take a lot of work. This is something obviously that for the president, for the vice president, and for everyone involved, this is not just okay, we're done and we're out. No, this is going to take a lot of work. And so J.D. Vance is on his way to Israel, if he's not already there. But remember yesterday we spoke about Hamas killing those that Hamas claimed were conspiring with Israel. There is, and we talked about this, there's a power vacuum, and so Hamas is doing what it does. Hamas is killing people. And if they're not trying to kill Israelis or killing Israelis, then they're killing their own people. And so one of the things that we talked about yesterday was the fact that there are rumors out there that Hamas is getting ready to just major breach of the ceasefire by launching a major attack and killing their own citizens in Gaza. That's what Hamas apparently is going to do. Kill their own citizens in Gaza in, again, what would be a major breach of that agreement. Do you know Hamas only knows how to do one thing, and that is kill folks? Like the state of Gaza, before the war, the state of Gaza was in no great shakes. And Hamas, of course, being the government, if you will, of Gaza, and it is a complete and utter train wreck. So Hamas doesn't know how to do anything but kill. And that's going to be a big problem for the people of Gaza, because if Hamas keeps it up, then Israel is going to keep it up. And again, Israel is going to hit back 20 times harder. So J.D. Vance headed to Israel now, and this is what he said. The vice president, we like to call him 48, at least I like to call him 48. And the president had his say about Hamas as well, and we'll talk about that in a second. But this is J.D. Vance as he was headed to Israel.
Well, look, it's going to be complicated. I mean, the best case scenario, meaning if this thing absolutely produces that sustainable long-term peace that the president and I hope that it will, there are going to be fits and starts. There are going to be, Hamas is going to fire on Israel. Israel's going to have to respond, of course. There are going to be moments where you have people within Gaza where you're not quite sure what they're actually doing. So we think that it has the best chance for a sustainable peace. But even if it does that, it's going to have hills and valleys, and we're going to have to monitor the situation.
Yep, and that is what they're doing. I'm sure Marco Rubio is on his way to Israel as well, Steve Witkoff, again, J.D. Vance. But that situation, as everyone has said, it is tenuous. But don't let that distract, and this is the important part. Don't let that distract from the accomplishment that this administration was able to achieve, which was releasing the hostages and building a coalition of nations that agreed that Donald Trump's deal was the best deal. Hamas is totally isolated. I want you to remember back in, when was it? Was it May, June, whenever it was, when President Trump went to the Middle East? I think he went to, if I'm not mistaken, he went to Saudi Arabia. He went to, was it Jordan? And I think the United Arab Emirates. This was months ago. But that's where this whole peacekeeping mission, I don't think it started there, but it certainly, with President Trump going out to the Middle East to, shake some hands, talk to people in person, and really set the stage to liberate Gaza and end the war between Israel and Hamas. And do you remember how much criticism President Trump got for going to those nations? Oh, he was roasted by the media. And as usual, the media was dead wrong. Do you remember when Donald Trump bombed Iran? Decimated their military capabilities? Now, there's a number of reasons why the president did that. Number one was obviously to decimate the military capabilities of Iran, duh. But the other part was that he needed to neutralize Iran through not only the military strike, an incredible military strike, by the way, for which the president was excoriated. He was just blistered in the mainstream media for doing that. Remember that too. But by neutralizing Iran through not only that military strike, but also the sanctions, is that they're no longer as big of a threat as they were, and Iran is not able now to fund Hamas. Because Iran is isolated, Hamas is now isolated. And Donald Trump was criticized for all of these moves every step of the way. But ultimately, Trump's move led to the hostages being released and a peace deal, even though it's tenuous. I believe and I hope that it's going to hold. Here is more from J.D. Vance.
When you talk about Hamas, you're talking about 40 different cells. It's disjointed. Some of those cells will probably honor the ceasefire. Many of those cells, as we saw some evidence of today, will not. Before we actually can ensure that Hamas is properly disarmed, that's going to require, as we know, some of these Gulf Arab states to get forces in there to actually apply some law and order and security keeping on the ground. So I think it would be kind of absurd for the president to say, well, Hamas is going to be disarmed 3 or 4 days from now. We don't even have the security infrastructure in place, meaning the Gulf Arab states, our allies, don't have the security infrastructure in place yet to confirm that Hamas is disarmed until you actually go a little bit down the path of this peace mission, of this 20-point peace plan, we're not going to be able to say with confidence that everybody is doing everything that we want them to do.
Yeah, and obviously we do need to keep an eye on Hamas, and this is going to be something that is going to be a long-term situation. You know, part of what I fear, and I think it is a legit fear, is that if and when the midterm elections happen, you will have the Democrats. And if the Democrats, and I've got some news on this, by the way, but if the Democrats end up winning the midterm elections, you know what they're going to start doing, right? Everybody knows what the Democrats going to do. If they end up winning the midterm elections, and Lord help us get the House back, then they are going to start attacking, going after Donald Trump and going after his administration, investigations, impeachments. You know the drill. And the Trump administration will be so incredibly distracted that some of the accomplishments that President Trump has been able to execute will ultimately end up going by the wayside. And Lord help us if the Democrats take over the White House in 2028. Now, coming up, probably in the next hour, we are going to talk about the possibility, the probability of Democrats taking over Congress after the midterm elections. I'm going to give you a hint. It's not looking real good. But back to Hamas. President Trump was asked about what is going on in the Middle East. This was I believe this was some sort of a cabinet meeting earlier today, where he is talking about Hamas not exactly going along with everything that they're supposed to be doing related to the ceasefire. They have not yet put down their arms. That is phase 2. But yes, they are killing civilians. This is what the president had to say. Tough talk.
For the first time ever, we made a deal with Hamas that, you know, they're going to be very good, they're going to behave, they're going to be nice, and if they're not, we're going to go and we're going to eradicate them if we have to. They'll be eradicated, and they know that. So they went in, and I don't believe it was the leadership, but they had some rebellion in there among themselves, and they killed some people, you know, a lot of people.
So I mean, and you heard J.D. Vance talk about this as well, where Hamas is an organization, and this is what Trump is saying, all right, that within the organization of Hamas, you had the leaders of Hamas, and they agreed to this 21 point solution that President Trump and all of those other nations, including Hamas and their leadership, agreed to. But what President Trump is obviously saying, and J.D. Vance said this as well, is that on the ground in Gaza, you also have different factions. You have these Hamas terrorists who have a mind of their own, and they may not be too happy that they have come to an agreement with Israel. And so that is part of the conversation. Donald Trump is saying, oh, yeah, they'll be eradicated if they don't play along.
But this is a violent group. You know, you probably noticed over the last 100 years, this is a very violent group of people. And they got very rambunctious, and they did things that they shouldn't be doing. And if they keep doing it, then we're going to go in and straighten it out, and it'll happen very quickly and pretty violently, unfortunately.
Yeah, so, you know, tough talk from the president, and there's more on that. Does that mean boots on the ground? Details straight ahead on Red Eye Radio.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Hey, coming up in the next hour, I don't know if you've seen this, Corinne Jean-Pierre is back. New look, same nonsense. We've got, she is getting mocked mercilessly as her book has come out. So we are going to talk about that and a whole lot more coming up. But President Trump talking about how he wants to eradicate Hamas. The question then becomes, okay, does that mean boots on the ground?
Yeah, just following up on that question, when you say we are going to eradicate Hamas, who is we? Does that include American boots on the ground?
No, it won't be on the ground at all. We don't need to, because we have many countries, as you know, signed on to this deal. the way I view it, 59 countries, and unanimous. There's never been, nobody ever believed it was right. Countries that 4 months ago didn't like each other, and now they're all aligned together. I mean, we've had countries calling me when they saw some of the killing with Hamas, saying, we'd love to go in and take care of the situation ourselves. In addition, you have Israel would go in 2 minutes if I asked him to go in. I could tell him, go in and take care of it. But right now, we haven't said that. We're going to get...
All right, that is President Donald Trump talking about eradicating Hamas. And I mean, listen, I think he is absolutely right when he says, oh, yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu, I give him the nod. He'll go in there and take care of things in 2 minutes. Got a lot more straight ahead. Follow me on the socials at Dan Mandis Show.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-90-733-39. Dan Mandis here, and I'm always happy and honored to fill in for Gary and Eric here on Red Eye Radio. There is a lot going on, of course, and I believe that we are in, is it day 21 now? Day 21 of the shutdown. And one of my favorite numbers watchers, poll watchers, is Harry Enton over there on CNN. Now, Chuck Schumer is really sweating it out. The reason why he's sweating it out is because I guarantee you that he and the rest of the Democrats are watching Harry Enton on CNN. The question that was posed, who do Americans blame for the shutdown? And I'm going to give you this hint right up front. It ain't Donald Trump.
That's exactly right. Turns out shutdowns are different the second time around when it comes to Donald Trump. Take a look here. You know, we speak about Donald Trump shutdowns, net approval rating. We're talking 20 days into it. In 2018/2019, Donald Trump's net approval rating was already falling. The shutdown was eating into his popular support. It was down 3 points already at this particular point and would fall considerably more. It was very much on the decline. You come over to this side of the screen, this shutdown hasn't eaten into Donald Trump's support at all. His net approval rating is actually up a point in terms of his popular support. So the bottom line is this. The first shutdown during Trump's first term, 2018-2019, was hurting Donald Trump. This one is not hurting him at all. There's no...
And here's what I would say about that. So left side of the screen, shutdowns and Donald Trump's net approval. Shutdown 2018. His net approval was down 3. But I'm gonna give a little perspective to that. Do you remember when Donald Trump was in office the first time around? I know that it seems like forever ago. But do you remember the attacks that he was going through? The attacks that he was enduring, that all of us, frankly, were enduring. You had the media that was obviously complicit in the Russian collusion accusations. You had Russian collusion going on. You had the media, the Democrats, and Trump just has all of these accusations and everything swirling around him, not only from, of course, the Democrats, but some Republicans as well. And so it's not surprising that in 2018, 2019, as he's engulfed in this shutdown, that his net approval was down 3 points. Because I don't know exactly at the time, I'd have to look it up, and I suppose that I could, but at the time, he was embroiled in all of this controversy. And I don't really know what the heck he was getting done at the time. He was basically fighting for his political life. But now, in 2025, he is getting a lot done. And people do understand that this is Chuck Schumer's and the Democrats, their shutdown. And so here in 2025, his net approval 20 days into the shutdown, up 1. What does that tell you? 2018, down 3. 2025, up 1.
No real reason Donald Trump might say, at least when it comes to popular support, I want to get out of this shutdown.
What about the question of blame?
Yeah, okay. What about the question of blame? Okay, you see Donald Trump's net approval rating was down 2018 to 2019. You talk about 2025 as net approval rating is up. It comes down to the blame game, a game I loved to play when I was younger. Blame Trump for the shutdown a great deal. In 2018/2019, 61%, more than 3 in 5 Americans blame Trump a great deal for that particular shutdown. You come over to this side of the screen, look at this. It's a different world. It's a different world. 48% of Americans blame Trump a great deal for this particular shutdown. So it's more than 3 in 5 back in 2018/2019. It's less than half, a drop of 13 points. Again, it's no real wonder that Donald Trump at this point, looking at the shutdown, says, you know what, it's not actually harming me politically, in large part because he's getting less of the blame.
Well, and here's the thing. Back in 2018, 2019, you had 61% blaming Trump for the shutdown. Again, I think that here in Donald Trump's second term, I think that there's a lot of people that, number one, have a different perspective of Donald Trump than the first time around for a number of different reasons. But I think one of the big reasons is that the American people endured 4 years of Joe Biden. And that'll change anybody's perspective. But you look at that number. Who did the American people blame for the shutdown in 2025? Only 48% say Donald Trump. That tells you that it's the Democrats who are going to blame Donald Trump. And probably fewer Democrats at that, because I always go with, you know what, roughly half of the American people are Democrat, the other half are Republican. If 48%, only 48% blame Donald Trump for the shutdown, that means that there's some Democrats that even understand that it is Chuck Schumer's shutdown. Because remember the dynamic here. The dynamic here is that the Republicans simply want to keep negotiating and having the government reopen. The Republicans never wanted the government to shut down. Now that the Democrats have done so, now that the Democrats have shut down the government in the Senate, well, okay. Now the Democrats, and as you just heard Harry Enton say, now that the Republicans have seen how the American people are looking at this shutdown, and they're blaming Chuck Schumer, they're blaming the Democrats. Now the Republicans, their messaging is, we really want this government to be able to reopen so that we could continue our negotiation. They're not really in any hurry because they see what it's doing to the Democrats.
And he's doing things differently during this shutdown.
Yes, exactly right. We talk about Donald Trump and you say, okay, he wants to be a consequential, influential president. Well, if the legislative process is basically freezed up, on Capitol Hill, you may say, well, then he can't actually get legislation through. But that's not how Trump is governing in this term. We've spoken about this over and over and over again. He's using his pen. He's using executive orders. Trump executive orders at this point of presidency. In 2017, it was just 50. Look at this. Already 210 executive orders signed by Donald Trump.
So you've got in 2017, Trump 50 executive orders. In 2025, 210. Oh, it's just like a king. No, it's not. Shut up.
During this presidency, that is the most in a year. You have to go all the way back since Franklin Delano Roosevelt to find a president who signed more executive orders in a year than Donald Trump has already signed this time around. And remember, John Berman, we still have 2 months to go in this year, so it wouldn't be surprising to me if he signs even more.
Yeah, it seems to be saying, Congress, you don't want to do something?
I'll do it.
I'll do it. Harry Enton.
Yeah, that is Harry Enton, and I think his name is, John Berman, whatever it is, on CNN. And I liked what old John said there at the end. And honestly, it didn't sound like he was really all that critical of Donald Trump, even though it was on CNN, where you do have Congress. You do have essentially gridlocked on a lot of things. And so Trump is saying, you know what? Screw it. I will just go ahead and sign executive orders. And some of these executive orders have gone through. Others have ended up getting stuck in the courts. And the president, and by the way, if it was a king that we had in America, these executive orders would actually be a decree, and they would not get stuck in court. But here in America, we actually have courts that keep check on the executive office and so on and so forth. And so, for all of these knucklehead liberals that have been running around hair on fire, oh, we have a king, oh, we have a king, no kings, no kings. That's the dumbest thing ever. And the reason it's so dumb is because it is so obviously and blatantly false. If you have a modicum of awareness of what politics is like in this country, then you know that clearly we don't have a king because the courts keep the king, if you will, the president in check, which is very un-king-like. I think that's why you have, in the previous hour, I played this audio of a bunch of Democrats who were polled. And the question was, okay, so number one, who's the leader of the Democrat Party? And number two, basically, what do you think of your party? And a lot of Democrats were like, oh, heck no. We have no leader. We have no vision. We have no goals. And then my question would be, well, then why are you so focused on this no kings situation and not simply getting back down to business? Well, I'll tell you why. One of the things that Trump said is that the Democrat Party, they're like kamikaze pilots right now, where they're going to continue on with this narrative of, no kings. And last night we did a deep dive on how the Democrats, they had this function in Michigan. Remember this? They had a function in Michigan where there was a big sign that said 8647 and MAGA equals Nazi. So the question is always going to be, okay, but what are your ideas to fix the problems in America? And people who were polled, they all basically said the same thing, which is, you can't have a party that is basically its sole policy is Orange Man bad and 8647 and MAGA equals Nazi. That's not a policy that is going to help the American people. It's simply not. I love what Senator Mark Wayne Mullen had to say. He put out a video about the situation that the Democrats are in as they are getting blamed for the shutdown.
Can work across the aisle as long as they love the country as much as I do. But when you start making decisions on the future of this country based on your reelection, there's no room to negotiate because you're not thinking about the country anymore. You're only thinking about yourself. A Democrat senator was quoted today in The Hill saying that after the No Kings rally, actually a lot of them feel like their neck and is in a guillotine. Is it really just about their base? Is that's the reason why they're shutting down the government? Yes, 100% they're afraid of their base. They're afraid of their own party that they'll get primaried in the upcoming election. And you go, that can't be possible. Okay, tell me one thing that's on this bill that the Republicans have put on since Chuck Schumer wrote it, and they voted for it in September of last year, December of last year, January of this year, and March of this year. Nothing has changed other than their base demanded that they shut down the government. I've always
said that is again Mark Wayne Mullen, and Chuck Schumer is the poster child for that. Because he's afraid that he's going to get primaried by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And you heard the senator talking about that article in The Hill. This is the headline. Democratic senators fear getting hammered after no kings for ending shutdown. So I think part of what is going on, and you had some of these lawmakers that I guess were out there in Washington, D.C. with the no kings people. But now, if they're afraid of their base, if the Democrats decide we have to open up the government, we are getting blamed for this, we are getting hit very hard for this, we've got to open back up. If the Democrats are afraid of their base, all of those millions of people that came out for the No Kings protests, Well, they are letting politics get in the way of what is right for this country. This is the article from The Hill, just a couple of passages. Some Democrats skeptical about their leadership's hardline stance against reopening the federal government's privately acknowledging that they fear getting hammered by their liberal base if they can vote for a Republican funding bill. Grassroots Democrats, frustrated with the Trump administration, have been demanding a fight. And on Saturday, of course, millions showed up at No Kings demonstrations across the country to protest the president's government. In that context, Democrats know they'll get hit hard by a number of voices on the left if they do not get something for opening the government. One Democrat senator who requested anonymity to talk about this says people are going to get hammered if they vote for the House-passed bill to reopen the government and keep it funded through November 21st. A second person also has things to say about the political dynamics. We'll talk about that coming up. It's Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. Dan Mandis in for Gary and Eric. This is Red Eye Radio.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Gardeners, getting the garden ready for overwintering and in good shape for next spring? What are some things to consider? Cynthia Domangini of Kansas State University Extension offers advice. Starting with,
if you have a large area, consider looking at cover crops. Some cover crops can be planted early fall time. That's a great way to protect your soil through the winter and contribute nutrients back into the soil for your spring planting.
Then there are the basic fall prep tips for getting a garden ready for overwintering to keep in mind.
Start cleaning up plant debris to prevent overwintering diseases and pests. If you would like to grow bulbs, planting those in the fall is important to get them to bloom in the spring. Some people have good intentions and they buy the bulbs, but they don't get them in the ground in time and they miss out on that spring blooming.
I'm Ron Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio, the phone number 866-90-RED-EYE. Welcome on in to day 21 of the government shutdown. President Trump said this yesterday about the Democrats.
And you're a smart guy, so you all understand, but a lot of people don't. The Democrats are getting killed on the shutdown because we're closing up programs that are Democrat programs that we were opposed to. So we're being able, and they're never going to come back in many cases. So we're being able to do things that we were unable to do before. So we're closing up programs that are Democrat programs that we wanted to close up or that we never wanted to happen, and now we're closing them up. And we're not going to let them come back. The Democrats are getting killed. And we're going to have a list of them on Friday, closing up some of the most egregious, socialist, semi-communist, probably not full communist, we're saving that for New York, but semi-communist programs, and we're closing them up.
Yep. All right. That is Donald Trump. Some fast facts real quick. 750,000 federal employees have been furloughed. You've got, independent contractors or government contractors who work with the government also impacted. Some of the various agencies that are impacted, the EPA's Office of Research and Development, multiple divisions within the Department of Education, HUD, Fair Housing Offices, World Health Organization funding, and a whole lot more. So President Trump, you just heard him, and he warned the Democrats he was going to do this. If you do this, you're going to be sorry because you will lose some of these agents and some of this funding permanently.
We're not closing up Republican programs because we think they work. So the Democrats are getting killed, but they're not telling the people about that. I say it, I haven't said it probably as bluntly as I just said it. But so we are closing up Democrat programs that we think that we disagree with, and they're never going to open again.
There you go, Donald Trump. Nice going, Democrats. If you're just joining us earlier, I played some audio of Harry Enton, CNN. And the polling has been pretty consistent out there, friends, as to who it is that the American people blame for this shutdown. And clearly, it is the Democrats. Every single Republican has voted to reopen the government. I mean, I know that you know that. Every single Republican. I think somebody fact check me on that. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's every single Republican has voted to reopen the government so that they can continue with the negotiation. It's just that simple. Is a blue wave on the way? Details straight ahead on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. So is there going to be a blue wave? I'm going to cut to the chase. Probably not. Probably not. Now, the question, though, is why, and I'm going to get into some of this, but number one, realize here's the disclaimer in case somebody wants to, unearth this segment in 2028, if, Lord help us, there is a blue wave. But I want you to think about all of the things that the Democrats stand for today. For example, I'm going to play, let's see here. Here we go. This is what the Democrat Party seems to stand for. This is, and I promised myself I wasn't going to play a lot of No Kings audio today because I feel like it's all been done. But here's one that I did not play from yesterday. This is a No Kings protester. This is a woman named Caitlin Bennett. And she is an influencer, and she's really good, and she goes, and she basically engages with Democrats. And so if you ask me, Dan, why don't you believe that there is going to be a blue wave? Well, it's because the Democrats stand for this kind of rhetoric.
Members. Whatever his name was?
Charlie Kirk, ma'am?
Yeah, him is horrible. Horrible.
Charlie Kirk is horrible?
Yes, I'm glad he's not here.
You're glad he's dead?
Yes.
All right, so I want to make sure that you understand. This woman at the No Kings rally doesn't even know Charlie Kirk's name, but says that he is horrible. Now, how does that make any sense? Either you know who the man is or you don't. But no, Charlie Kirk is not and was not horrible. But this woman continues on.
Why would you say something like that, ma'am?
Because he was horrible on the campuses, the college campuses. Horrible person.
You know what? I do the exact same thing.
Well,
would you be glad if I would die?
Maybe. I'd have to think about it.
What, if she would die?
I don't know.
Excuse me?
No, I don't know you, but I didn't know him either. But he was not a good person.
He would go to college campuses
and
he would go to
think he got shot because he wasn't a good person.
I mean, what an absolute nut job. Why was Charlie Kirk shot and killed? Because he was not a good person. And friends, I would like to say that this person is the exception, not the rule, within the Democrat Party. But you know what is so sad? I don't even know if that's true anymore. There seems to be such an irrational nature about the Democrats. I mean, yesterday I played you audio and I told you the stories of some of what we saw during the No Kings protests, including one woman who turned out to be a Chicago elementary school teacher. who made her fingers into like a gun and pretended like she was shooting her neck, mocking the death of Charlie Kirk. So do you think that this is the exception or the rule? I will say this. While I don't believe that the majority of Democrats are glad that Charlie Kirk met the fate that he did, I'd like to see more of them denouncing it. I'd like to see more of them condemning it and condemning violence. But you'll notice that they're not doing that. You know, we've all spoken about the assassination culture of the Democrat Party, where, and I forget the exact numbers now, but where you have a lot of Democrats who said, oh, yeah, absolutely, you need to assassinate Donald Trump, you need to assassinate Elon Musk to get what we want. Well, then there are just certain things that we have to do to get things our way. And that's what they have said. And so I don't pretend to know how many Democrats either screaming at the top of their lungs or silently what they think about the assassination of Donald Trump or the attempts on Donald Trump, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, you know, the anger and hatred and calls for the assassination of Elon Musk. But this woman personifies, for a lot of Americans and certainly many Republicans, what the Democrat Party does stand for.
I do the exact same thing that he does. I believe, he is a moderate compared to me. You would be happy if I got shot on a public college campus?
Okay, no, baby, no.
You have got to watch the things you say.
Now, I love this because Caitlin, and I really like Caitlin, she's got her finger in the face of this woman and telling her, you know what? You got to watch what you say, because when you say these things, you are advocating for more violence.
Because what you just did, that's disgusting. Don't point my finger at her, ma'am. You have got to watch the things you say. That is awful, ma'am.
And now the woman realizes that she messed up. The woman realizes, and you just heard her say, I'm on camera saying that, and then she holds the sign up over her face. Listen, honey. No King's protester. If you are really glad that Charlie Kirk is dead, okay, well then fine. Scream it from the mountaintops. Don't be ashamed if that's the way that you feel. Now you should be ashamed, because that kind of I think about this with myself all the time. Who is my most hated Democrat, and would I want that Democrat to be assassinated? The answer to that question is absolutely not. I don't wish violence on anyone. And do you know why I don't do you know why I don't wish violence on anyone? Because I believe that I can win in the battle of ideas. And I'm also not an a-hole. I don't believe that people should be killed for what they believe, what they think politically. Of course not. But that's a very Democrat thing.
And I don't believe that you actually mean that. I think your feelings are heightened right now.
I don't mean it, but he was a horrible person.
How was he a horrible person?
Because what he was doing to our students, what he was promoting, was horrible.
What was he promoting?
Right. Yeah, I'm done with you.
What was?
Yeah. I'm done with you. You know why? You know why this protester is done with Caitlin Bennett? The reason why this protester is done with Caitlin Bennett is because Bennett is doing exactly what people should do. Walk up to these people and say, what exactly is it that you have a problem with? What exactly was it that Charlie Kirk said that makes you believe that his murder was justified? Oh, I'm done with you. You're done with Caitlin Collins, lady, because you don't have answers, because you realize now how ridiculous you sound.
What was he promoting, ma'am?
Be done with her. She's pointing a finger in your face. And
Yes, you're a horrible person yourself. And point your finger in my face and coming to this peaceful demonstration. Why would you, and put it in my face.
Go down the road here.
I am utterly speechless right now. Let this be proof right now. These people are not peaceful. Just because they're not actually committing physical acts of violence right now, they would celebrate if you died. If you believe even a modicum of what Charlie Kirk believed in, if you have dialogue like that, if you want to go out there and talk to people about any issue that they even want to bring to you to talk about, they'll celebrate your death.
There you go, Caitlin. I love it. I love it. Caitlin Bennett. You can find that, by the way. If you want to see that video, you can see it. Follow me on the socials, if you would, at Dan Mandis Show. I am on Facebook, I'm on X, and I'm also on Instagram. And Bill is calling from Los Angeles on Red Eye Radio. Bill, how are you?
Hey, good to hear from you again, Dan.
Great to be here, Bill. And what's going on?
Hey, these Democrats keep talking about no kings, but they love Gavin the First of California. He can show them what a real king does. Here's what he's done. He's locked down during COVID. He locked down all the public schools while his own kids attended private ones. He locked down most businesses, but not his own winery business or his favorite restaurant where he dined with fellow royalty, including his lobbyist. And then he locked down churches in violation of the First Amendment, and they collected in a lawsuit on that one. And then he got a new gerrymandering proposition on the ballot, like at a cost of about $200 million to taxpayers, to circumvent an independent redistricting commission. And then he mandated no new gasoline vehicles be sold after 2035. That's what a king does.
Hey, Bill, let me ask you this question, because everybody knows that Gavin Newsom is going to be running for president. I mean, you are right there in California. Which, by the way, in case people don't know, I am from California and vowing never to return. No offense, Bill. But the people of California, do you think that they would vote for him for president?
Which people? I mean, look, we got a lot of stupid people out here.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. But you're right. I don't think the Republicans would vote for Gavin Newsom in any way, shape, or form. But in California, it probably would lean towards Gavin Newsom, even though there's been how many attempts at a recall against Gavin Newsom? Well, at least one, right?
Well, the big one that Larry Elder ran against him, but the second one has kind of fizzled. It doesn't have much. There's a lot of division, and people are saying, "What's the point? He's going to be gone soon." But California is not, fortunately, representative of the rest of the country, because we've got this huge illegal immigrant population that's become dependent on handouts, thanks to Newsom and his royal buddies using our tax dollars to supply these future voters and these people who will support him, including these nonprofits. There's so much corruption going on here, but I don't think the rest of the country, with the exception of some of the big blue cities, have this representation. But there's a definite pattern you see in New York, Chicago, and San Francisco to some extent of what's going on here in LA. But I think to the rest of the country, if they see what this guy has done to California, like the gas prices, the housing prices, and these homeless encampments, it's just not safe here anymore. And I've been here most of my life. I've never seen anything like the devastation that Gavin the Greasy has done to California.
But Bill, I think you're missing the point. The housing prices and the rent is all very expensive, as everyone knows. But as you know, Bill, all is okay because you will be paying for the rent of illegal aliens because they're afraid to go outside because of ICE.
Along with their medical care.
Along with their medical care, Medi-Cal. Absolutely right. Bill, always great to hear from you. Thank you very much for calling Red Eye Radio. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. I don't know how you folks do it in California. I got to tell you, because I know that we've got listeners on WLS in Chicago, right? So I know that we've got listeners in Chicago. I know that we've got listeners in D.C., courtesy of WMAL. We've got KABC in Los Angeles and all these other great cities across America, WJR in Detroit. And I don't know how, if you are of a conservative mindset, how do you do it? I guess is the question that I would ask. It's a rhetorical question. If you want to call, fine, 866-90-RED-EYE. But how do you do it? Like, if you're a conservative living in California, if you are a conservative living in Illinois, how in the world do you get through the day without just your head exploding? 866-90-RED-EYE. We'll return next.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. From USA Today, this is an opinion piece from someone named Ingrid Jacques. Don't count on a blue wave in the midterms. Most Americans say Democrats are weak. Do you know the only thing that Democrats seem to be strong on is trying to protect illegal alien criminals? Isn't that the funny thing? It's like when they finally show a spine, it's for something reprehensible. With the midterm elections just about a year away, the signs of a blue wave are looking grim, she says. At least that's what the polls are showing. Democrats have spent much of 2025 trying to dust off their defeats last November and figure out how to stay relevant in a federal government they no longer control. She says the problem is most Americans are not impressed with what they're seeing with the Democrat Party. We'll talk more about this straight ahead on Red Eye Radio.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.